to see.
This meeting is being recorded.
What can we close that?
No, there's nothing to close.
Okay. We're getting a little bit static or.
Yeah. Hey, Paul?
Yeah,
This meeting is being recorded.
good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Gilje, and I'm honored today to introduce Carolyn and Joe Martinetti of Bismarck, North Dakota. Carolyn is a daughter of Knud Moen, one of the homesteaders in the early 1900s in western North Dakota, with great close connections to the people in Rolette. Knud Moen is my first cousin once removed. He was the first cousin of my father, and Knud's father was help me out, Joe. Knud's father again was
I thought you said it was a brother.
but Knud's dad. What was his name? Connection.
Cornelius.
Pardon?
Cornelius.
Cornelius was a brother of Enok Gilje, who settled in North Dakota. So that's the connection. And Cornelius did not end up immigrating, but Cornelius's son, Knud, did with several others. So Joe and Carolyn have done great research here, and we're very honored to let them take the mouse here and go to work and tell us about the Moen family. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. Well, when we start the slideshow, just to let you know that we're not going to be able to see you guys, so but we can hear you. So there we go.
So thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this presentation on my grandfather, Knud Moen, growing up in Norway, immigrating to America, and starting his family. Knud was born on July 7th, 1887, and grew up in the southwest part of Norway in the Dirdal area. His father bought a farmstead, Gilja, to start his family, so he used the last name of Gilja. Later, his father bought an adjacent place that was called Moen, and since Knud grew up there, his last name was Moen. Before 1900, Norwegian names contained three parts. The first name was known as the Christian name given at birth. The middle name was the patronymic name, which was the father's first name, plus son or daughter, depending on male or female. And the last name was the farm name they lived on. This could change multiple times if they moved from farm to farm. So in the case of Knud, his full name was Knud Cornelius son Gilje, but his last name or farm name changed when he moved to the Moen farm. Cows and sheep were raised on the farm. Goats were also raised for a time until the neighborhood decided as a group to quit raising goats, as the goats ruined the smaller trees on the mountain by eating the leaves off. He would also chop wood from the mountain and haul it home. The crops that were grown were oats and potatoes. The grass was cut for hay for the animals. There was also fishing for those that lived closer to the ocean. During certain times of the year, they would fish for herring. Community activities included dances, but Knud mentioned he never attended or learned to dance. In the summer, they had a nice place to go swimming. Winter activities included sledding and skiing. However, skiing places were not that great around his town. Knud's mother made cloth and then used that cloth to make clothes for the family. They also made butter and cheese from the cow's milk. The extra milk, butter, and cheese the family didn't use was brought to town to sell.
There.
The countryside was rough and rugged with a lot of mountains. There were many small farms nearby. Further up the mountain was pasture land, wood, and trees. In the summer, the cattle were moved to this pasture area called a setter. This area was also used by other farmers to bring their cattle to for the summer. The cows were milked there, and sometimes the butter and cheese were also made there. The school he attended was close to his home. One of the first days he attended school, during the lunchtime, he went home. His first thoughts of school was that he could come and go as he liked, but he learned that was not the structure of the school days. Later, a new and bigger school was built between Deerdal and Gilja. Religious studies were also included in the school instruction. He attended until he was 14 years old. After he finished school, he worked for 3 years on a farm near the Stavanger area. He helped milk cows and keep the strawberry and rhubarb fields free of weeds. This farm also grew apples and pears. Later, he was asked to join a fishing crew, and he was glad to have a change of duty. In 1982, Larry Sprunk from the North Dakota Heritage Center interviewed Knud along with other homesteaders. Here's a small clip from that interview where Knud tells a story from his childhood.
Before I forget, tell me the story about the time your clothes caught fire.
Well, no, I don't know if I can make you understand that, but that ain't much to tell, you know. I was pretty small then, you know. But if you want me to, I can tell that. Well, take this and make it, tell us, here we go. The house, our house, I'll have to tell you that first.
Okay.
That was built in one. Now, I'll start with one room here that you might say was a guest room or a bedroom or a guest room. And then it was the kitchen, a big kitchen. Oh, we had an awful big fireplace in that kitchen. Yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
And then it was the living room. There we would sleep and eat in that big living room there. Now I say big. All of that stuff looked big to me, and maybe now it wouldn't, I wouldn't see.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, and then it was the living room. Now this here's all built together, and then come to hay room, or hay barn, if you want to call it.
Uh-huh.
And then it was a kind of a little space between there, it was a thrashing place. All right, we go by there. And then there's the sheep place. And then there was the cow barn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I did. It is long like that, built all together.
Uh-huh.
I have to mention this so you'd understand when I tell about that fire.
Okay.
I had an older brother and an older sister, and I really don't know why, but it seems to be having to build fires, you know. Well, anyway, that brother of mine, he and sister, they were building. We'll call this the whole thing then.
Okay.
Build a house in the kitchen here, and then they were going to build a fire. They had to come around here and go across the creek that will come, as I can dream of now, right by here. There was a bridge here. All right. And they took fire, you know, and I suppose they carried in a stick or a burning stick, and I was small, I'll tell you, and I saw this here, and I was going to do the same thing, and I got hold of, right in that big fireplace, we could get the sticks, you know, burning, start the fire. And then they walked around, as I told you here, and was going to, and they went across the bridge, and they were going to build a fire here in the hillside. And as I said, I was going to do the same thing, and I come as far as here. And my clothes must have got fire hot. My hand, the stick of my fire must got up to the hands, you know. And I didn't know better than I put the sticks in between my feet, you know. Well, that's pretty foolish. I shouldn't tell you that, but I didn't know better.
Well, you were
I didn't want to let the fire go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then that's about as much. I can remember a little about how much I had an awful. Yeah. And it started to hurt, you see. And my mother, she must have heard it. And she come out this door on the other side. And she ran down here, and she had to go across two stone fences like this. And I have to explain them two stone fences. They were to go from the sheep barn and cross the creek. So they wouldn't scatter on the farm. They come across the creek. They were in the pasture, you know. Yeah, all right. She had to go over both of them fences to get to me. I guess it was, and she got there, and she threw me in an awful dirty mud puddle there. That's the best I can remember. Yeah, I must have fainted.
To put the fire out.
Oh, I suppose Maud put that in that mud hole too.
Yeah.
And I can't remember about my brothers, well, I suppose they got an awful schooling. Yeah, that sounds foolish, but well, that poor Ma, she could hardly holler here and then go over. Those fences, as I can see them now, they were pretty high too, you know.
Before.
This map shows some of the cities around Gilja where many of our ancestors came from. Knut's parents were Cornelius and Rebecca. They had 10 children. 2 of them died in infancy. This picture on the left is the gravestone in Norway for Cornelius. The image on the right is the death record for Cornelius. This is Rebecca, born on July 14th, 1854, married Cornelius, and died on April 24th, 1906. Knut had 3 sisters. So here we have Aletta, born on February 20th, 1886, married Sigurd Olaf Borison Lowland on January 22nd, 1907, and died on April 23rd, 1947. They had 8 children. She stayed in Norway and they raised their family. Marta was born on June 18th, 1890, married Wilhelm Berge on July 10, 1915, and died on April 25th, 1980. She stayed in Norway. Karin was born on August 4th, 1895, married Oscar Svedsen on November 12th, 1932, and died on April 21st, 1966. They had 1 child. She stayed in Norway and they raised their family. Knut had 4 brothers. Torsten was born on February 28th, 1885, married Anna Terrell's daughter Crawford on October 1st, 1918, and died November 24th, 1962. They had 5 children. He emigrated to America, but later returned to Norway where they raised their family. Martin was born on March 18th, 1889. He did not marry and died on January 16th, 1982. He stayed in Norway. Rungvald was born on August 17th, 1891. He married May Victoria Jackson on November 12, 1928, and died on January 16th, 1982. They had 2 children from May's previous marriage to Leonard Jackson in England. He emigrated to America. Bertel was born on March 16, 1894. He did not marry and died on August 28, 1988. He stayed in Norway. Knud emigrated to America in April of 1905 at the age of 17. His oldest brother, Torsten, who was already living in America, sent him a ticket for the trip. He came aboard the ship Selma. He left Stavanger, Norway, and landed in Philadelphia, New Jersey, on approximately April 25th, 1905. He traveled with his cousin Andrew Gilje, and they arrived in Rolette, North Dakota, and stayed with his uncle Enok Gilje. There were quite a few Norwegian people already in the area, and the older ones spoke Norwegian, but the younger ones did not. This document is the petition for naturalization that Knud submitted to become an American citizen on June 23rd, 1915. As Knud was adjusting to life in North Dakota, the landscape looked quite flat compared to the mountains he was used to. However, the location of the houses that had been built there reminded him of the place on the mountain called a setter place or summer pasture. It looked like an area that had not been settled. However, the land in North Dakota was fertile. Knud did not miss Norway much after he arrived in America. He always had in his mind that he would return to Norway in a few years. He worked for a farmer, Ingebret Marcellus Ingebretson, who went by the middle name Marcellus, at Ox Creek. This family was from a different part of Norway. He learned to speak English by listening to others speak, especially Marcellus's young son, John, who talked with Knud a lot. He worked for this farmer for 2 years. He helped with the chores for all the cattle, sheep, and hogs. He also worked on a threshing crew hauling the bundles to the threshing machine. Andrew Gilje homesteaded in Dutton, Montana in 1915. He passed away during the flu epidemic of 1918. This is the homestead document that was filed, which gave Andrew Gilje 160 acres near the area of Dutton, Montana. Torsten immigrated to America in 1903 and homesteaded near Golden Valley in Mercer County. The document on the right is the land patent for Torsten's land. Torsten sent a letter to Knud telling him there was a homestead available that was adjacent to his land, but he would have to come right away to claim it. Knud left Rolette immediately on the train, but when he arrived in Dunn County in the Golden Valley area, the land on which he was planning to file had been sold, so he took another homestead north of Halliday. This first homestead was 2 miles west and 3 miles north of Halliday. This was one of the last homesteads that was available. This was approximately around 1909. Knud homesteaded 4 miles northwest of Halliday, as said earlier. Later, he traded this homestead for one that was 1 mile west and 1 mile north of Halliday. This gave him 160 acres to farm. The homestead owner didn't want to continue, so he gave the land to Knud. The term they used at that time for this type of change of land ownership was relinquishment. It was one of the last homesteads that was available. Later, he purchased additional land to total 640 acres for farming. Knut farmed his brother's Torsten's land in Golden Valley when he went back to Norway. Torsten decided to stay in Norway and take over the home place, so Knut purchased a plow, a wagon, and a mower from Torsten to use to farm his homestead. He also got 4 horses. The only building for living in was a dugout with a door on Knut's homestead. It provided warmth from the cold in the winter. When you couldn't be outside due to weather, they played checkers with neighbors. He also helped do some carpenter work in the area and helped build the first school. This is the homestead document that was filed, which gave Knut 160 acres northwest of Halliday. During the first year, the sod was broke on the homestead except for some pasture land. He used 4 horses and a walking plow to do this. He also had 4 mules that he used to break the sod. Mules were different than using horses, but he enjoyed working them as they were strong animals. He used mixed breed horses for farming, but started raising Percherons. As he was getting a good start raising them, the tractors became popular, so he quit raising them. Flax was the first crop he put in, and a good harvest was harvested in the fall. The dust storms were very hazardous on the prairie. The wind blew the dirt into drifts, just like snow drifts, and you couldn't see very far in the distance. The grasshoppers ate crops before you could harvest them. Knut had cut an oat field down to use for hay, but before he could rake it up, the grasshoppers had chewed the stalks to small pieces, so he was unable to rake any of it up. The first tractor he purchased was a Ford in 1941. He didn't ever think he would be without horses on his farm, but it did eventually happen. In Norway, Ingeborg lived with her family on the other side of a mountain from Knut at Fraford, but they never knew each other. Knut's future brother-in-law, Gilja, who lived on an adjoining quarter of land near Halliday, had traveled back to Norway with his wife. Chris' wife stayed in Norway for a while. Then later in 1914, when she returned, her sister Ingeborg came with her. Knut met Ingeborg at their place. Knut married Ingeborg Fraford on February 9th, 1918. This was the year of the flu epidemic. They both managed to stay well. However, they were aware of neighbors that had gotten sick and passed away. They lived on the homestead for a year before they moved to the By place 2 miles northwest of Halliday. Knut was still living in the dugout when he first met Ingeborg. He eventually built a sod house and then later a small shack. After Knut moved to the By place, he bought a 2-room house, which he moved onto the homestead and later added rooms for raising his family. Until electricity came to the area in 1941, every night water was carried into the house along with coal and wood. Cows were milked by lantern light during the winter months. Knud did not own a threshing machine, but his brother-in-law did, and he helped him with that. Farmers helped each other in the area with harvesting, butchering, and other needs as necessary. After the grain and hay harvest was completed for the year, coal was mined and hauled to the farm place to keep homes warm in the cold winter. Many farmers had coal mines on their homesteads. The picture on the left is the building of the foundation to the barn on the homestead. And the picture on the right was taken in 1998 with the foundation still in place. This is the family of Knud and Ingeborg, back row Anna Marie and Ruth, front row Clarence, Knud, Ingeborg, and Tillman. Ruth was born on July 10th, 1919, married Arthur Antonsen on November 7th, 1953, and died on June 22nd, 2017. They had 5 children and raised them in the Halliday area. Clarence was born on October 4th, 1920, married Gertrude Dembski on November 10th, 1947, and died on April 30th, 1999. They had 4 children and raised them in the Genesee, Idaho area. Tillman was born on November 1st, 1923, and died on August 22nd, 1977. He never married and lived and worked in the Halliday area. Anna Marie was born on January 27th, 1928, married John Dalen on September 25th, 1955, and died on October 20th, 2020. They had 5 children and raised their family in the Halliday, North Dakota area. As we were doing our research, so the next 4 slides are just some interesting documents we came across that we'd like to share. So this first one is a postcard from Marta to Rungvold as he was in America. Of course, I don't know what any of the wording says on the card, but it was, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say what's interesting is that we have a whole bunch of postcards where the front of the postcard is a photograph taken, and then they were put on these postcards and they were just not used as postcards, but they're very personalized.
Mm-hmm. So this slide is the a number of selective service documents for Knud Moen. So just the registration certificate, his registration card when he registered for selective service, and
yeah, and I think this is both for right after World War I and prior or during World War II.
And this slide is the selective service documents for Rungvold Moen in Dutton, Montana. Once again, the same kind of documents, registration card, and then this slide is a couple of church records that we found for Marta and Karen, showing their wedding registry at the church. This document is Rungvold's stepson, Leonard Jackson, who was stationed at the Philippines when the Japanese invaded the island. He was taken prisoner when Bataan fell and later died as a POW in October of 1942. The center document shows the press release, which was just last December 17th, 2024. That's when his body was identified and the press release was done. This is the last slide, just celebrating our grandparents, Knud and Ingeborg, at their different wedding anniversaries that they celebrated. We have lots of fun childhood memories with them, celebrating many birthdays, holidays with them, and we just really appreciated getting to know them really well.
I just wanted to make a note here that it was very fascinating. Knud really loved horses, and we were having dinner at his house with Carolyn's mom and dad, Art and Ruth, and Knud and Ingeborg. And it was funny, after dinner, we were sitting around talking, and at that time, Knud said, you know, he said, I'd like to get another team of horses and start farming again.
In his 90s.
Yeah, in his 90s. So.
Yeah. All right, that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions, comments?
Let me just say first, before you kick the questions, how deeply appreciated we are, how deeply we appreciate what you two have just done. This is a great work on your part. We can tell the extra efforts you've made for pictures and for documents and for the solid history of another pioneer that came to North Dakota. So this is very helpful, and I'm sure thank you. And I'll have a question or two, but see if some others do first. So anybody who's got a question or a comment, please share it.
Well done. That's all I can say is fantastic. Great job.
Well, thank you. And I do have to give some credit to my mom because she was a great saver of documents and pictures, and she loved saving things from the family too. So that's why we have all this information.
Tremendous.
I shared with Carolyn that her mother, Knud's daughter, was very faithful in sending me. Ruth sent all kinds of Christmas cards. We communicated in depth every year. She's a very wonderful lady. That was a fine experience for me.
Paul, I have a question.
Go ahead, Bernie.
Yeah, in one of your earlier slides, and I can't remember, it seems to me one of the brothers was named Ragnvald or something, and I forget the other.
Knud's brother's Rungvald, yes.
Anyway, there were two brothers. They were, I think one was born in 1891 and the other maybe 1889 or 99 or something, but they had dates of death that were the same day. It was a January date, but I can't remember the year. But I thought, well, that's odd. The two brothers, unless they were involved in a vehicle accident or something. Did you note that or have any information on that?
I've got to take a look. It might be an error that we did.
Okay.
So, and I don't have, well, you got the book there.
Yeah, that's quite possible. You know, there's a lot of dates you're putting in there, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and if anybody wants on ancestry.com, our tree is out there for anybody to look at. So if you've
I've got the dates. Rangvold died in 1979. You don't know the date that he died?
Well, actually, I'll be right back.
Okay. Joel will get that information for us. He has it on another computer. So hang tight.
I recall back in the 1970s and 80s that Chuck and I visited Knud several times and Ruth, and kept in touch with Ruth over the years. And in the 1970s and maybe early 80s, when we were in Norway, I recall meeting Bertil in Gilja.
Frederica, I remember that day so well.
Yeah, remember that, Paul? That was fun.
Very, very well. Bertil and Martin had a
Yeah.
nice visit with us,
Mhm.
and they were so gracious and
Mhm.
so humorous. And
Yeah.
we have a picture of the two of them laughing out loud with my father. Yeah, it was a marvelous day. Thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that.
1980, right, Paul? I
Yeah,
bet
that's
you-
right.
Yeah, that was really fun. So very interesting.
In terms of Norway, Arna Estebo is on the call. Arna, you know the Moen family very well. Tell us what you know about them and also where their farm is located.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. My father, he bought 3 acres of Torstein. That's where we had our home. So Torstein was our neighbor and also Bertel. But I have a very interesting experience in 1987. We had been in Medora with Frederica and Chuck, and was looking for Knud's farm. We came up to Halliday Sunday morning, and we didn't know where the farm was, so we drove through the houses there and looked, and there was an old man sitting in the front on the step in the front door.
Mhm.
And I say, I think I go ask him if he can know where he live. Oh no, he's too old. My wife said, no. I went over and he said, no, I'm not sure, but he was 85 at that time. I came from Norway too, he say. Okay. Yes, Stavanger was my city. Oh, yeah, I came from the bottom of the fjord, Högsfjord, I said. Then he turned over on Norwegian and he said, I'm from Frafjord.
Ah,
He was next to where we live. He had gone to America when he was 18, and now he was 85 years. And we took him in the car, and we found the farm. But Ingeborg was not on the farm. She was, I think, in another house. So we visit her. Just I could recognize her when I saw the 65 weddings picture.
okay.
So we spoke just a little with her then. But it was very fun to meet the man from Frafjord.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
That
he was not Knud. He was somebody else.
No, he was Bjarne Frafjord. Bjarne Frafjord.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So, but back on that, your father bought land from Torstein Moen
Yes.
that you grew up on your farm.
Yes.
Ah,
And
okay.
and Torstein was very kind. So he said to my father, I think you should have a place for a cow up in the hills. So he gave him another acre up in the without any paying.
Is that right? He gave you acreage up in the mountain?
Yeah,
For
up
free.
halfway up to the Gilja zone.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Further comments, questions?
It's very interesting.
Brent, do you have any questions? Guess not. Let me comment that in 1986, when we held or 1976, excuse me, we held the reunion at Rolette that will be celebrating the 50th next year. I interviewed Knud at the program on Saturday night, and he was very good talker, and I enjoyed particularly when he said when he came to Rolette in 1905, there was no tree at all. It was all bare. All around was nothing but prairie. And of course, today there's all kinds of shelter belts and other trees that have grown up since then.
Mhm.
Further comments? Joyce, do you have any comment about your grandpa and grandma?
Well, I think Carolyn and Joe did a wonderful job. Almost the recording almost brought tears to my eyes to hear his voice again. Haven't heard that for a long time, and so that was wonderful that they included that. Our grandparents were a very integral part of our daily living. Our land where I grew up was right next to theirs, and we would walk down to their place a lot and spend a lot of time. He loved to carve, and he loved to carve in wood, and he loved to do all kinds of things like that. So we have very rich memories of our grandparents, and we are so grateful for them.
Thank you very much. Further comments, questions? Carolyn, do you have more to offer, or Joe?
Just to update on the date of Rummel's death was incorrect. The correct one is February 27th, 1979.
Okay, good. Bernie Harrelson, your sharp eye came in handy again. Thank you very much. Okay. So any further stuff that you want to bring to our attention? Anybody? Just to bring you up to date, we'll keep an eye on the meeting that we'll hold next. It looks to me as if it will not be in March. If it is in March, it'll be the end. We've got some conflicts in the earlier part of that month that will preclude holding the meeting on the third Saturday, and we'll see if it works later. Is there any other? Also, I hope all of you pay attention to the preliminary draft of a possible agenda for the reunion in 2026. Some early comments are that maybe we ought to condense it a little bit, that it seems to be covering 4 nights, 4 days may be a little ambitious. So we'll look at that carefully. Also, I want to say that thanks to the contributions from many people, including many of you here, we've received already in cash $16,100 for the sculpture that we're going to commit for the cemetery there, the sculpture of a pioneer family, husband, wife, and 2 kids. So that's going to be proceeding thanks to Ken Dahlsted's efforts. Any questions about any aspect of the reunion planning or other stuff?
I think you're doing a great job. I really appreciate the email where you gave us a preliminary agenda. Gives us some food for thought.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that comment. Okay, I think we'll say happy Valentine's Day. Arna, thank you so much for being on today. Appreciate it. You're very helpful. We'll be in touch with you and Joyce and Frederica and Bernie and Brent and Randy and Brett, Jeff. Jeff, you have any thoughts that you wanted to share?
I don't know if this that working. No, it was very good. Just a passive listener in this, but it was very good, very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Again, Carolyn and Joe, thank you so much, and blessings to all of you, and we'll be in touch again. Thank you. Good day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.